Hey guys, I want to first apologize for me not being here these past few weeks, past few months actually. I have not been very present as far as blog posting. I've been really busy trying to get finals done with, dealing with things at home, etc., etc., etc. But nevertheless, I do owe you guys an apology for not being here on the blogs, and I promise you I'm going to do everything I can to make up for that this summer. Try to keep you as involved as possible, and hopefully not fall off any time in the future. But so this is what I want to do with this post here. So to just go over my freshman year, I'm officially done with freshman year. Took finals. I actually just got back from home. I went and visited family. I saw my little brothers and sisters who are not so little anymore, but it was nice to go back home. I am staying here at my beautiful fraternity Phi Kappa Theta for the summer. And I will be doing research, but more on that a little bit later. What I just wanted to do is go over my entire freshman year, classes, dorms, everything I can think of, hopefully in a video that's a little bit less than 20 minutes. What I want to do though is put timestamps, so if you want to hear something about my classes or classes that I took, but you don't really care too much about what dorming was, or if you want to hear more about research but don't really care too much about classes, that way you can sort of hop around the video without having to watch the entire thing, because it's probably going to be a little bit long and you probably don't want to hear me ramble for that long. But anyway, I'm going to start with classes. I guess this year I took 8 classes. I want to say that's probably pretty normal for an MIT student. I would say 4 classes a semester is probably around the average, depending on major, what year you are. That number might fluctuate, plus or minus 2. But I would say that most people are taking around 4 classes a semester. This year I took, let's see if I can remember the names without the numbers. First semester I took physics mechanics, a new biology class that was offered this year. It's biology for like people that like biology a little bit more, 715. Chinese 1, and then I took multivariable calculus. I took multivariable calculus, and then second semester I did 511-1, which is chemistry, chemical principles. I took Chinese 2. I took a writing class that's required. My CIH was autobiography, and then I took E&M. Chemistry class, physics class, and then 2 hash classes, just to get my CIH for the year out of the way. And then I have to do a Chinese class every semester in order to get my Chinese minor. So this year, I would say my favorite classes was probably 7015, which is the introductory biology class. It's a more advanced bio class. If you enjoy biology a little bit more, it's something that just like you like a little bit more, and you've taken AP biology, I would suggest that class. The class itself, for me, was my favorite class. I just love biology. I'm a course 20 here, biological engineering here at MIT. I loved the class so much. The professors were, they knew what they were talking about. They explained everything in an easy to understand way. The TAs were constantly available if you had any questions. The recitations were useful. The application of the material just seemed so relevant. The class itself is sort of taught, rather than using a textbook, more through scientific papers. So if you like reading science papers, which is something that I've always done a lot of, it's pretty nice. But if you don't like scientific reading, it is a class that does take a little bit more scientific paper reading than the other biology classes. However, on the other hand, I feel like we did do less textbook reading than the other biology classes had to do. So it's a trade-off, pros and cons. The class is taught sort of on the end, assuming that you know most things about AP biology. So you don't spend a lot of time learning, what are the different organelles of a cell. There isn't really much about the macro side of biology, so you don't learn a lot about, like tendons or like micro or macrobiomes, things of that nature. You learn a lot more on the cellular level, so you spend a lot of time doing things like antibody production. We did a lot with, CRISPR-Cas9. That was a really really cool unit. We did a lot with just bacteria, and viruses, things of that nature. It was a very very cool class. If you enjoy bio a lot, I would definitely suggest it. If you are someone that doesn't enjoy bio a lot, I'm not saying don't take the class, but it is really sort of geared towards those people that enjoy bio a lot. So the thing that also was, I took it on Pass No Record, um, which I think made me enjoy the class a little bit more because it is a difficult class, but the fact that I had no grades allowed me to just sort of enjoy the content without worrying too much about what grade I was getting, um, but which ended up working really, really well. Also, on that side, I think one of my favorite classes was just both Chinese classes that I took this year. I actually took three Chinese classes, even though I took one twice. I, the entire Chinese department is just phenomenal. Every professor I've had has been super engaging, has been so willing to help the students learn. I feel like the 2 semesters that I've been taking Chinese, my Chinese is far better than my Spanish after taking 6 years of Spanish in middle school and high school. The class is, interestingly enough, I wrote about this a little bit in a blog post earlier, and this I think this goes across all languages here at MIT, but correct me if I'm wrong, anyone who's watching this and it's like, you're wrong. I found that first day of Chinese 1, I took no Chinese in high school, knew no Chinese at all. He sort of explains to the class what we're going to be learning, what the layout is of the class, but he also said that was the only day that he was going to be speaking any English. So starting day 2, the entire class was completely in Chinese, which made the class difficult, of course, but it also made it extremely effective. I believe all classes are taught this way completely in whatever language they are, starting off with that first language class. So Chinese 1, Chinese 2, both of those classes were completely in Chinese. It's the professor has been. If somebody told me to teach a bunch of non-English speaking people, teach them English and teach them English in English, it just wouldn't work. I don't know how they do it, but it's a phenomenal class. However, it is a very time-consuming commitment taking a language class. I would say technically it's not going to be as difficult as your technical classes. I don't think I had to think as much or sort of problem solve as much as I had to in physics or math. But there is a large amount of time that just has to be committed to that class. I think for Chinese 1, I spent like 2 hours a day studying, and then for Chinese 2, something like 3 hours, and that was outside of class. So like 2 hours before class, I would study, and then I would study an hour after class. So there is a very large time commitment, just because if you fall behind on your Chinese, or this is any class, I am assuming, but I'm speaking from Chinese because I've taken it. If you don't spend the time studying, you're going to go to lecture and not be able to understand what the professor's saying because you don't know what he's saying. And then because you'll go back to try to do the homework, and you won't be able to do the homework because you don't understand what the professor said. And then you'll try to prepare for the next day and not be able to prepare for the next day because you weren't able to do the homework. And then the cycle just gets worse and worse. And that started to happen to me beginning at my first semester of Chinese. I didn't invest as much time to it as I should have, but I got myself together by the end of the semester, even though it probably would have just been easier for me to start studying more towards the beginning of that semester. Chinese, it's just been an amazing experience. They really want to make sure that you know the language. There's a chance that I'll be taking a year off after my sophomore year to study Chinese in China. However, that's a whole other story. Still something I'm not too sure about. But I'll probably do a blog post on that later if it ends up happening, and I might still end up doing one if it doesn't happen. So yeah, Chinese was an amazing experience. I'm taking Chinese 3 next semester. The people are really, really cool. The professors are amazing, and just the ability to start learning a new language has been a ton of fun. The classes that I feel like were a little bit more difficult for me were definitely my physics and math classes. I think the reason being is coming into MIT, I had only taken up to BC Calculus, which I feel like is a pretty normal thing for a lot of people here. If you don't have an IB program and you just sort of go to a standard high school, BC Calculus is normally, or for a lot of people, is sort of like the last sort of math that you take in high school. And I was able to skip out of uh, single variable calculus due to my AP scores, but I do have to take multivariable calculus. And the difference, I think, for me going into multivariable calculus from just AP calculus in high school is it no longer was just a memorization game. I feel like in high school, BC calculus for me was, or just calculus in general, was sort of, if you know the formula, you plug it in, there's your equation, you plug it in your calculator, or whatever it is you need to do. It's just as long as you know the formula, you can just sort of recognize you need to use this formula here and solve out the question. It's just a lot of memorization. The same question, essentially, different numbers. However, MIT does a really good job at making sure you understand everything. So you're not just going to be given a formula. You have to know how to derive out that formula. You have to be able to figure out that formula. You have to be able to make a different form of that formula in order to apply it to a different situation. And I think that's just something I wasn't used to going into MIT, and that made multivariable calculus a little bit, or pretty difficult for me. I can honestly say I struggled a good amount trying to get through that class. It was just, I wasn't used to there being so much need for an extensive amount of knowledge in math and science, or math in general, was just, I had always been used to, using the formula when I needed to, memorizing a trig identity when I needed to, memorizing, the, like, pulled out form of a polynomial or something like that. I just didn't need a lot of extensive knowledge for math. But at MIT, they make sure that you know where everything's coming from, how it's derived, how to apply it to any given situation. And that was a little bit more difficult. However, coming out of that class, I think my problem-solving abilities were a lot better. When I took 802 this semester, that ended up being a lot easier, I think, given the fact that I struggled so much my first semester in math. I think the rest of my classes, physics, chemistry, my writing classes, they all sort of fit in the middle. I don't want to go too much more into each one a lot, but if you have any questions on those classes, you want to know a little bit more, just sort of, put a comment down, and I can sort of explain to you a little bit more about my experience in that class, and I might write a little bit more in the actual blog post that I do. So moving on out of classes, this year I lived in Burton County. I honestly loved it so much. I lived on Burton 2. So definitely come check it out if you are coming to MIT. However, I won't be there. I'll be living in PKT this year. But I've really enjoyed it. The community of Burton County for me was really, really nice just because it's suite style over dorms. So given that it was suite style, I didn't spend a ton of time in my room. I think for me, room was just to sleep and the occasional time to study. I didn't study too much in my room just because I would study in my room and like my bed would just be like, sleep, sleep. And I would always end up falling asleep in my room. So I spent a lot of time going to the library or just studying in one of the kitchens in one of the suites. That just ended up being a little bit easier than studying in my room. But the thing that I really enjoyed, like I said, is the suite style. For me, it was really nice because there was always someone out. Everyone sort of worked in groups just because no one ever spent a ton of time in their rooms. Everyone was always sort of communally together. There was a quote-unquote freshman suite that most of the freshmen spent a lot of time in. We could work on P-sets together. We all had sort of the common struggle of all doing sort of similar classes at the same time. So I also enjoyed cooking for myself this semester. First semester I was on the meal plan, and I think that was really, really nice. For the first semester, I didn't have to really worry about cooking too much. But I came back here for IAP. I was here over IAP, and there wasn't really an option for me to eat over or to be on the meal plan for IAP. Not that there isn't, it's just for me it was really expensive, and I live in a cooking dorm, so I took advantage of cooking. And after cooking for that month over IAP, I realized that I enjoyed cooking a lot more than I enjoyed dining, so I came off of the meal plan second semester and I cooked for myself. And that ended up being really, really nice. So I got to pick what I wanted when I wanted. I could eat really late at night, which I enjoyed because the meal plan, I believe, closes depending on the dorm somewhere between like 8:30 and 9ish, and sometimes I just wanted to eat at like 10:30, 11 o'clock, and it was always a pain if I was on the meal plan that the dorms or all of the dining halls would be closed at that time. So it was nice to be able to, if I wanted to eat really late, I could just eat. I feel like I got a little bit more variety in what I wanted to eat since I got to choose for myself. I knew how to cook already just because back at home, my parents made sure that I knew how to cook. So coming in, there wasn't really a learning curve of learning how to cook. However, grocery shopping was a new experience. My parents normally did all of the buying of the groceries, but grocery shopping wasn't too tedious to figure out. After one or two tries, I figured out. I'm from a 7-person family, so I kept trying to buy everything in these huge bulks, and then would realize everything would just expire with like a weekend because it wasn't being eaten. And then I just had to realize I had to shrink all my buying down to just one person because I wasn't trying to buy food for 7 people, which is what I was used to doing. So I figured all that out in about 2 weeks, and it just ended up being really nice to cook for myself. Now that I'm living in a fraternity, I'm not sure if I'm going to continue cooking for myself just because grocery store and isn't as close, and I feel like our kitchen isn't really as sort of stocked with everything I might need as the kitchens were in BC. But I don't know. We'll figure it. I'll see how it is. Like I said, I'll be here for the summer, so I'll sort of figure out what it is that I like doing while I'm here. So yeah, I think living was really nice. It was really, really enjoyable to, see all these people. I feel like I made a lot of good friends that are above my year, and I definitely feel like I'm going to go back pretty consistently to, just make sure I don't lose touch with everybody that I got really close to in Britton Cotter. And it wasn't just my own floor. I was able to meet a lot of cool people on all the floors in Britton Cotter. It's not too hard to, sort of just ride the elevator, take the stairs up or down a floor, and people are sitting out as well, joining the conversation. And you can make a lot of good friends from a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different types of people. So, yeah, that was really, really cool. Let's see, what else? There were PEs that I took this year. I took archery and fencing, both coincidentally part of a Pirate's License. If you don't know what a Pirate's License is, it's a certificate you get if you finish pistol, archery, fencing, and sailing. I want to say those are the 4. I'm not 100% sure, but I want to say those are 4. I did archery and fencing, and not that I really plan on getting my Pirate's License, but it worked out that way. Both classes were phenomenal, a ton of fun. I've slightly considered joining the fencing team here at MIT, but it all sort of depends on whether I end up doing research next semester. It was a lot of fun, both classes. It was sort of a break from your normal classes. Neither were too physically demanding. Fencing was more demanding than archery, but neither were ones where I left and I just felt like I was about to collapse. They were both a lot of fun. I feel like I learned some pretty good skills without, getting too seriously injured. Some people seemed like they hurt themselves during archery. There was like the bow kept hitting them in the arm. But luckily enough, that never happened to me. So I got to avoid being hit in the arm by any of those things. But it was fun, both classes. The coaches, I guess, for both classes really knew what they were doing. Were really wanted you to sort of learn whatever it was they were teaching, and everybody in the class was sort of just there to, enjoy and have fun. So I would definitely suggest those two if you, or when you need to get your PE requirement done for both of those classes were a lot of fun. Let's see, what else happened this year that would be worth talking about? This year, or this summer, I'm going to be doing a Europe in Coke Lab, which is the Cancer Research Institute here at MIT. That's why I'm here for this summer. I quickly came to realize coming here at MIT that most everybody seems to do something over the summer. I wouldn't say it's 100% required, but I feel like I don't know very many people that are just kind of going home for the summer, which is something I didn't really realize until second semester, that everybody is in, California, New York, Texas, here doing something, internship or something like that. I think that's just kind of the way MIT is everybody sort of feels obligated to, do an internship or you do work at a startup or something like that. I feel like that's what most people are doing, but MIT also just makes it really easy for you to do that. They make sure that you get the right connections, make sure you have the right experience. So I wouldn't say it's a bad thing. It's definitely something that I feel like it's good for me to start getting on top of trying to get as much research in as possible before I start having to apply to graduate school. And just sort of, realizing how to apply what it is that I'm learning here. So I feel like it's not a bad thing that everyone feels this obligation, but I would say it definitely is a feeling that most people are doing something over the summer, whether that be a startup or just research or something like that. Like I said, I'll be working at Koch Institute. I'm working in Dr. Hammond's lab. I'll be working in ovarian cancer nanomedicine this summer. I'm not going to go into too much detail about it, but it's honestly, for me, not super hard. For me, I don't think that it's super hard to get a Europe. I'm not saying it's not hard at all. I did run into a couple bumps trying to get one. I didn't want one my first semester just because I wanted to get here, get adjusted, figure out what MIT was like, and I didn't want to have an internship on top of all that. Around December, I started looking for one, and I did find one at a cool bioengineering meetup that MIT sort of sets up, and you get to sort of meet a bunch of people in the field of bioengineering, and you get to meet grad students and try to set up a Europe, and that worked really. I think that's pretty effective. Most of the time, people find something that they really like, and you can get a Europe pretty easily that way. However, I did find one. It was all set up. I had come here wanting to do nanomedicine and cancer research. It wasn't really that. It was more of a genomics lab. But I was like, Europe, I'll settle with what I can get as a freshman. And apparently I don't have to. As a freshman, I don't think you really should feel like you have to settle. And it turned out around January, I was supposed to start in February because they weren't going to be here for IAP. But at the end of January, they told me they didn't have enough room for the lab. So I was a little bit upset about that just because I waited a full month, almost 2 months, to start a Europe, and it ended up not working. So I went, looked for another one, interviewed for another Europe. I didn't get that one. And I was like, oh no, the summer deadline's coming up. I wanted one for the spring, didn't end up getting one, but I think it worked out pretty well. Anyway, I have one for this summer. The way I just did it was I just started emailing professors. That didn't really work out so well, so I started emailing graduate students individually, just like, I really want to work in your lab. Your research seems really interesting. Are you free for an interview? And I think for me, that seemed to be the best way to do it. When you email a professor, especially in biology and maybe chemistry, they sort of email to their grad students. They sort of just forward the email to their grad students, since you don't really work with the professor one-on-one. But I feel like grad students don't really respond too much. But if you email each graduate student individually, they feel a little bit more obligated to respond. And I feel like I got the most responses when I emailed graduate students individually. So I will be doing that for this summer. If you are working in a bio lab or a chemistry lab or a lab where there's chemicals and liquids and you have to work with mice or animals and things, fair warning, you have to do a ton of training. MIT requires you to do just all of these training classes and online classes and things of that nature. So make sure if you get a Europe in a lab, even if you've done research in high school, you are required to do a ton of training. So I am almost done with my training after almost a month and a half now. but I started it before the summer started, so that way I wouldn't waste my summer doing doing training rather than doing rather than doing actual lab work. So I would say the last thing that I'm doing this summer is I will be doing a program that was recommended to me by someone in the Chinese department. Basically, a bunch of high school and middle school students are coming to Boston for a week or 2 weeks over this summer. They're all Chinese middle school and high school students, and I'll be a group leader. Basically, what we do is it's called the Boston Roundtable. Check it out if you want to. Talk to the Chinese department if you are looking to do something like this over the summer. It's only 2 weeks. I'll be taking 2 weeks at a lab to do this program. They do pay you for being a leader, and basically what you do is you teach them culture and language for a week. And then for another week, you sort of give a tour around the United States. You give a tour of MIT, Harvard. You go to Yale, DC, New York, and you just get to tour those places. They get to figure out what these places are like. I'm the only MIT student doing it. I believe there are a couple students from Brown, a couple from Harvard, and a few, I want to say, from Williams and Mary, but I could be completely wrong. I don't remember. But it's a pretty cool program. You get to work in teams of two. I'm going to be the American leader for my group, and there's another leader who's a Chinese leader coming over with the kids, and we'll be working together to look over these kids. And then on top of all these things, you just sort of get some time to sort of help teach them English, get to practice your Chinese a little bit. I'm really required to not speak Chinese with the students just because they're here to learn English. But I do get to practice comprehension by listening to them, and then practicing with the other Chinese leaders who do know English but would be willing to help with my Chinese. So yeah, I think it's been a pretty good first year. I've had a ton of fun just sort of meeting people. Finals, I would say is kind of frustrating a little bit, just because we don't have a dead week here like I feel like a lot of colleges do. So you sort of just have like classes end on Thursday, you have a day off on Friday, and then finals start on Monday. And professors teach all the way through Thursday. So you're learning stuff on Thursday, and then you have to go back and remember all the stuff from the beginning of the semester come Monday. But I feel like, if you just sort of take the time, go to the library, isolate yourself a little bit, and just do the studying, I feel like finals this year, at least for the classes that I took, weren't ridiculous, except for my multivariable calculus final. But I think that was just a special instance for our year. It was just a special treat to have a ridiculously hard final. But I think for the most part, it wasn't that bad. Finals were just, something you had to work at. I think that's just with exams in general, just studying in general. Just, take some time to, get away from your friends, go to the library, and just get some studying done. It can be really easy to procrastinate, especially after P&R. Huge tip to P&R, after P&R. Towards the end of P&R, and if you have some time over IIP, what I did was make my IIP really difficult. But you do lose a lot of work ethic over pass no record, just due to the fact that you don't really have to worry about grades too much. Coming into second semester, there are a lot of people I feel like lost their work ethic first semester, came into second semester, and it was really hard for them to get back onto studying like they did in high school. And I found that I made my IIP really hard. I took two really heavy courses over IIP, and I feel like by doing that, I got my work ethic back over IIP when it was still pass no record. And coming February, I was able to get back on top of what I needed to do as far as studying goes, and it made my second semester a little bit easier. Set some goals for yourself, but don't set them too high. You'll figure out MIT will wreck you at no matter what you do. But it's also a great place to be. So that's my first semester, or first year in general. Like I said, if you have any questions, you want a little bit more on something in specific, just comments. I'll try to respond to everything that I can, and hopefully write a little bit more if you want to read about it. I should write a little bit more about maybe classes, and I can do a little bit more editing if I find that there's something that everybody wants to know a little bit more about. But yeah, that's about all there is for me. I hope to see you guys all soon as you start coming in next year, and I wish to those that are applying to MIT coming this next year, I wish you the best, work hard, and hope to see everyone soon. Peace.